Welcome to the Friends in Film podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to give you insights into succeeding in the film industry that you will not hear about anywhere. Not in film school, not online, not even from the people on film sets. I teach you the art of building a career in a connection-based business. You've been through the awareness phase, you've been through the fascination phase, maybe you went to film school, but now it's time for the implementation phase, and that's what this is all about. Having an extraordinary successful career in the professional film industry. John Clark. Oh, there he is. All right.
You rang. How's it going?
Good, good. How are you doing?
Doing very well. Well, that's not true. I'm disappointed because I just found out that I didn't get a job.
Oh, good. Now we
Well,
can
that's
talk
because you need
about
to be
it.
available. Right. We can do that, and you're available for the better one. That's
um, yeah, it's a bummer. I'm still pretty green, and I need to celebrate the fact that I got as close as I did to being hired on as a draftsman on a film, but it still stings, it still hurts.
Tell us more now.
Yep.
Okay, were you referred to it? Draftsman on a film? What was the budget? Tell us more.
So it was a tier three Christmas project. I forget what, I think it's what, 10, 12 million for tier three? No, it's got to be more than that because tier one's like three. Anyways, it was a probably a bigger film than I was ready for.
Oh,
Um,
good. There you go.
but I had worked with a production designer before doing a short. I worked with a lot of the crew. I just did 9 months on a TV show with a lot of the crew, so I kind of had not a bad reputation, but a guy who has never worked on really big union stuff before and kind of just, like I felt like Wally when he tries to like jump in with all the other robots and he's like banging and knocking stuff over and I'm just like, oh, I'm not supposed to do that job. I'm sorry.
That's how you felt on the other TV show.
Yeah. The
But but
producers
but
love me.
notice, no, I just want to say, notice how you're always noticing what you did wrong, but never what you do
Mhm.
great, which is like he has
And
also killed it. But go ahead.
what also comes to mind, John, is I would think, and if I was noticing something like that about myself, I would remind myself that everyone on that set started somewhere, and everything that they know, they learned by doing those sorts of things and doing the wrong things and such. So it's all part of the learning process. And each time that something happens like that, it's another kind of tool in the toolbox that you know what to do the next time that happens.
That's fantastic. I definitely would benefit from having that type of thinking.
It helps. It takes practice. It takes practice. And the first part is just recognizing when you're having sort of a negative kind of self down thought and consciously trying to find something positive to employ in that moment. So,
Yeah,
and think about everyone else and what they probably did bumbling along to get to where they are at that point.
exactly. Keep it positive. Um,
Yep.
yeah, so I did a short with this production designer in the past. I came on as kind of a volunteer PA. They were paying, but it was, uh, it was less than $100 a day. It was, it was kind of like a PA audition training program thing. The production company,
Mm-hmm.
they do these reach out programs where they get a tax benefit if they hire, so many, local people. Um, and I got in on that and met the production designer, and they were like, immediately they were like, you have some skill. And I was showing them like graphics and other shorts that I'd art directed and like, all the really big scenic stuff that I've built. And they were like, we need somebody to do props. Can you do props? I'm like, yeah. Um,
That's a big role.
yeah. Then they needed an on-set dresser. Then they needed somebody to do FX. And it was just kind of like, I ended up taking on a bunch of roles. And the production designer's like, you're great. You have to get in the union. We got to get you, going on stuff right away. Fast forward to, I ended up working as a kind of uh, all over PA trying to get on this TV show. Then finally got hired on to the props department, funny enough. Um, and missed an opportunity to work with that production designer on a film. Couldn't do both things. I had to choose. I decided to stick with the thing that I was already on. And it was,
Mhm.
I'm so sorry. I hate to say no, but I need to stick it out and to see this through. And she was like, I respect that absolutely. Uh, and fast forward to, I reached out to that production designer as we're wrapping, and she ended up being the production designer on this job. And was saying, yeah, I've got some things coming up, like send me your resume, blah, 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 blah. Love to work with you again. I'll let you know when I'm working. And then I found out she was a production designer on this, and it was like, oh, like, it's a unfortunate, like, it's a bummer. Um, the
But
art
it sounds
director,
like she was considering you for it because of the previous connection, right? Like you wouldn't
yeah,
even been considered for this position had you
yeah,
not had those previous connections.
there was another film right before this one that was they started filming like as we were starting to wrap on the other project, and uh, it was just one of those things where people are like, why are we getting all of these recommendations for this? Like, why are they pushing this one guy so hard? And I reached
Hmm.
out on social media because I had been following the art director on who was the art director on that. I've been following him for years. He did The Penguin. He did all these, really great shows. And I was just like, hey, let me know, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, actually, yeah, we have something coming up. And then so I was kind of on his list, but then he didn't get it. So I don't know if I didn't get it. But turns out the art director that did do the film, I was a PA on another project that just came out called Twisted.
Hmm.
And it was just one of those like doing lockups in the freezing cold kind of things. And I met him for like all of half a second, but I was like, "Oh my God, you're this person!" Like, hi. And you could tell he was a little bit like, "Oh, like who are you?" So yeah, there were a lot of things. I was like, I was so close. I was right there, but um, didn't work out. So the producers are great. They're gonna, definitely gonna work with them again if the television show comes back for second season. Hoping I'll get hired onto
Hmm.
something like that. In the meantime, I'm just working on getting a website and a portfolio together, putting all that stuff and
Great.
getting that in a place where people can see it. So
Yep.
um, I have some questions regarding specifically the way that art department works at a very high level.
Sure. Yep.
Specifically staffing up. I don't know. Like obviously you have your keys that come together when you have a project, but as a production designer, how do you go about like finding people when you're putting a project together and you're staffing up for something?
Totally. I will say it's project based. So it comes like your first thing as a production designer is going to be doing your breakdown, seeing what you're going to need for locations, props, vehicles, those sorts of things, because that's going to dictate what positions you need to fill first and kind of if you're having a whole bunch of builds, then you're going to have a whole construction department and stuff. If you're entirely location based, you can probably get by with just subbing out a couple of set builds here and there and not having an entire construction team. So it's project based in that way. And then it's broken down into different sub departments. Basically, your production designer is the top of it, the head that communicates with the other departments, the DP, the director, producer, all that. Your art director is second. They're basically executing for the production designer. And they'll have a lot of communication and interface with other departments as well. Less directly and also changes based on what the production designer likes to do or doesn't like to do. I would have a lot of the hard conversations as the art director that the production designer kind of didn't want to deal with or have their relationship tainted with. So, as the art director, sometimes I would be the one who had to have the budget conversation with the production manager and stuff. Um, that's just part of the role. Also, you have your art department coordinator, and they're kind of the third part of that top. Um, and they are in charge of the scheduling, crew, and they'll help with research sometimes, setting up accounts at your rental houses. Very important and very helpful people. And then below that, it's very much project based. If you have a bunch of vehicles, you're going to have a transpo manager. If you have a bunch of sets that need dressing and stuff, you have a set decorator. Probably going to have a props person. That's going to be pretty much guaranteed. Anytime there's actors, they're going to need things to hold. And then beyond that, it gets more specialized. If you need rain or things like that, snow, you have a special effects team, and
So the
so on.
production designer hires art director first, and then art director usually is in charge of going through and getting everybody else, or there's a kind of bigger conversation.
It's helpful when you're hiring your art director. You want to hire someone who you know has a lot of connections because you'll probably lean on them for that. As the production designer, you kind of have the leeway for first hires. If you have a set decorator you really like working with, it would be a conversation because maybe the art director really doesn't gel with that person very well. But you're thinking about how all of the people on your team are going to work, and for the project, if it's something that's a period piece, you want to hire people with that you know are good with that kind of thing. If it's a commercial, you want to have some folks that have been on commercial sets before. They're not kind of the student film folks that you wouldn't want around a client kind of thing. So you're thinking about all of that
Together.
kind of stuff.
So production designer going down. Obviously it's project specific, but say greens department, would that be
Mm-hmm.
something that you would art department would consult on, or is that its own separate thing?
That's under art department. Yep.
Okay. And then
For skincare, for example, the feature with Elizabeth Banks, that was a lot of location based thing. But the location we were at was kind of dingy outside. So an early conversation with the production designer that I had was she wanted to dress it up with a bunch of greens and have like, oh, some hedges over there and some this over there and whatever. I'd worked with her a whole bunch before and knew that some hedges over there was going to be a lot of lifting for PAs or something. So I really pushed right from the get go that we have a greens department, have people on hand to water them and make sure they make it through the whole shoot and such. Because I'd worked with her previously and we'd had to pay some pretty hefty loss and damage charges because some hedges didn't get watered by the PAs, which really isn't a PA's job, but was a lower budget thing. So, having that experience and previous knowledge and having done my breakdown and knowing how many greens that was going to be, let me really push for that. And, you know, that was something that I was really pushing for. There were other things that I was like, I can let this go. This isn't something that is a need. So, really knowing my script and knowing the needs of it um, lets you prioritize those things.
I wanted to circle back and ask about something that was mentioned earlier in terms of reaching out when you're too green or you don't have a lot of experience. It can, potentially blacklist you or put you in a, category of you don't know, what you're doing. I'm worried that at times I shoot myself in the foot because I reach out too much or too soon. Well, specifically, it was for this TV show. And I was like, who's the production designer? And they went, oh, it's this person. And I went, oh, and they went, don't reach out. And I'm like, okay. It was, so, and I've noticed that when I usually get phone calls for jobs, when I get hired on things, it's always completely out of the blue. It's never like, oh, I've been following up with this person for a long time. Um, it's always like such and such said you were, good at what you do. And I was like, yeah, I am. Okay.
If you're reaching out in a polite and respectful and responsible way, in the ways that Janet, you have templates and such here, so try not to steer too far from the templates. Um, as long as you're not sending something every week to the same people or something,
Yeah.
I think you're. Yeah, I didn't think so. I would appreciate it, and I mean, I still get people reaching out to me as a production designer. I have set decorators who send me their updated portfolio every couple of months or something, and they're not my first call, but they're in my email inbox. And if I need a set decorator and I'm going down my list, they're going to be a call I make. So I would say it doesn't hurt to have periodic reaching out moments and stuff. And sometimes something comes from it, sometimes something doesn't. Sometimes it's just a response where it's like, hey, I don't have anything going on right now, but thanks for reaching out and hope you're doing well. And that's all it is.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I wouldn't try and get in other people's heads too much about all of that. They're probably not thinking that hard about it all. So,
Um, have you had many instances where you've been able to successfully vector very far outside of your existing network?
uh, like to a distant location or something.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever
Yeah,
been
I mean,
hired
I
on a
got
thing where
hired for a production here in Maine a couple months ago, and that was because they thought I was in LA, but I had listed some Maine stuff on my website, and I was like, well, I actually am in Maine right now. So if you're coming to Maine, I'm already here, and you don't have to buy a plane ticket. So
oh,
um,
cool.
that kind of thing happened. But the person who hired me, and then the connection that I was able to make with them was they actually live in Portland, Oregon, and I had just done a commercial there the year before. So we chatted about that. So it was kind of an all over the country vector in one phone call.
Nice.
So yeah, those happen.
Um, there's a kind of a mentality. I don't know if it deals with art department, but I've heard about it when people are saying like, "Here's how you pitch a project." It's like you never want to say if somebody says, "Can this be done in this location?" You never want to say no. You always have to say like, "Yes, absolutely," and then figure it out. Do you find that that's true with art department at all?
I, as the production designer, I try to have options.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't really nail myself to one particular position. I try to have like three options to present to the team, and then we can all discuss the positives and negatives. Because sometimes I find out that we actually do have more money in the budget, and I don't need to be on such a shoestring thing or something. But I wouldn't have known if I hadn't asked. And
Okay.
sometimes I find out that this person got blacklisted from that location because they did something silly 10 years ago. And so we can't shoot at that location, even though it's the perfect location. So got to go with the other option or something. So those are, yeah, I try not to walk in with myself concrete on one thing specifically. I try to present options as much as possible.
Okay. Um, you mentioned blacklisted, like a person was blacklisted?
From a location, yeah,
Oh, from a
that's kind
location.
of yeah, a location. I One specific one comes to mind. It was actually a project Bree was producing, and we had a car driving the scene, and when we went to do the location scout, the director and myself and I think our the DP piled into the car with the stunt driver we had hired, and we took that car through the streets of a movie ranch way faster and spin outs and all kinds of things. And when we came to the end of it, the producers walked up and were like, "Yeah, we just lost this location."
Because of the driving?
Yeah, and then yeah, we weren't supposed to do
Oh, okay.
that. So, um, which was funny. It was a stunt driver from Fast and the Furious and all that kind of like we should have known better. But I
It
think
was
he
part
wanted
of
to
the
have some fun,
production,
and
though, the driving, or was it just for fun?
this was a location scout. We
Ah,
weren't there were no like safety meetings or anything. There was not no. This was just a location scout to see if we could do the drive. It was silly. Um, but that yeah, the producers they were not allowed to shoot there for years afterward. They would have to have someone else call if they wanted to book that location.
Uh,
But hold,
um,
but one quick thing. John, I think that you are concerned about blacklisting when you reached out cold, and then you got kind of a very like uppity kind of response from a high-end production designer. And I just want to hit this nail on a head because I want Jake to kind of give you some perspective on this so that you can relax about this concern that I think that you might have. And maybe I'm just kind of guessing and I'm off a little bit, but I just, I want to address it because I think that this kind of concern or fear, and I mean, believe me, I can have it too. I'm like, I get around sometimes people that I need to
It's
make
a
an
valid thing.
impression.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's valid, a totally valid thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just want to talk about it just because it's just so important. And I want to find a way in your brain and all of our brains to have some freedom around it so that we can just go forward in our careers. So, however this discussion goes, let me know, John, if that is something that you would want to discuss.
They might not want to work with you specifically, but that's that individual person. And it's certainly not a generality across the board. So as long as you're watching out for yourself and doing things that feel morally right for yourself, not purposely burning bridges or something, or, letting your temper get out of control. That was a lesson I had to learn early on. I kind of threw a fit in the middle of a set, and because I hadn't been given a shot list, and struck a set 3 times in a row and then had to restore it because they kept saying it was shot out and then it wasn't. Um, so there can be justified things, but as long as I mean, even that project, the DP for that would call me for projects beyond that and stuff. So it's like, I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time and energy concerned with a blacklist or this or that, whatever. If there's certain people that don't like working with you and you don't like working with them, don't call them first. Call other people. Call the people you like working with and who you get along with and have a good time with.
Coming back from a situation where you struck a set 3 times and, were really frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
is there a path to kind of making it back off of that, or is it better just to kind of not mention it and move on?
I mean, in that specific circumstance, I recognized what was going on eventually and apologized. Said I was going to take a walk around the block to get some air. Did, and then came back. Everyone else kind of understood the frustration and had a shot list waiting for me when I got back, and we finished out the rest of the day. It wasn't something we like dwelled on or whatnot. It really depends on the situation and whatnot, but usually acknowledging if you did something and apologizing and whatnot is people appreciate that.
What
Yeah.
specific question do you have, John, about what you want to accomplish and what problems are you running into? We get that we can get right to it if
Hmm.
we look at the problems.
I think one of the biggest problems is I might be a little too aggressive in trying to make it happen too quickly. And it's just frustrating all around when you really want something, and you go for something and you don't get it. And then, you wrap a project and you're kind of, hopefully not back to square zero, but a little bit back to square zero. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's more,
It's if I can jump in, John. It's nice to hear this. It does remind me of my early days starting out in film and such. And if I can share from like a whole bunch of time in it, you're right on with feeling like sometimes you're reaching too high for the experience you have at the current moment. And I applaud you for pushing yourself to that. That's some good go-getter energy, and it sounds like you do have goals of where you want to be. And it's good to have those goals and to hold on to them and to be ready for them when those career changer things come along so that you can take those steps on the ladder to getting those goals. Um, from it's it, you'll recognize along the way, and it's part of the fun of knowing that this is an ongoing career, and it's not like each particular job is not your career. Each of them is just kind of another step along the way of the years of your career. So you don't want to put so much weight on each particular thing that it starts to affect you and kind of bring you down and such like that. Because there are so many factors that go into why you might not get something, or why this might fall through or something, or why a lot of the times it comes down to budget, and suddenly the budget falls through, and they don't tell everyone that. They just say, oh, you're not on the project or whatever. Not putting so much weight on each one of those can help. And then as you go along, and you will start to move up and start to have more responsibility and be on bigger projects and shoots. And at those times, you're going to think back to the earlier ones and specific things that happened and be like, okay, that had to happen so that now I know what to do in this situation. That has happened to me so many times where I'll be faced with a problem, or someone will come to me and be like, oh my gosh, we have to do this thing. And early starting out, Jake would not have any idea how to handle that situation. But because I had seen other people handle it a certain way, or knew who to call to help or something like that, I was then able to, in that high level position, use my experience that I had gained to specifically address that problem or something. So it's like, yes, have your goals, have your things that you're working toward and want to accomplish and stuff. But kind of be open to being surprised about how you get there, I guess. Because all the big goals I had and the things I wanted to accomplish, moving to LA, having a film go to the Academy Awards, like partying at a house in the hills and with palm trees and stuff, like none of those things actually happened the way earlier me thought they were going to happen. So that's part of the fun of it all, is just seeing how your goals come along, and that happens because you're ready for them. So follow the steps. Try not to overthink it. If you find yourself getting negative or something like that, go get a glass of water and try to, dance it out, get some physical motion, and try to think of something positive you can do.
Okay.
So it's that reframing, and it gets easier too.
Thank you for talking to me. It was great to,
Pleasure. Yeah.
have some concerns assuaged.
I think that just what's so helpful is just kind of seeing, and I'm really glad that I brought you two together, actually, because I think that you can see from Jake's kind of like, I'll figure it out carefully, but I think that I can do this and things will work out. I'm not expecting it to be easy, but I'm going to just kind of keep going and make it work for everybody. These are his thoughts. This is his vibe, which is coming from his thoughts. And I believe that, creating those kind of thoughts will be helpful for you, John, to create them on purpose. Just kind of take that on, or just even to listen to him, and you can kind of like, or listen to people on set that you're like, I just like the way that they are and how they're thinking. That'll probably be your biggest
Emulate other people. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be
Yep.
your biggest
I
breakthrough.
would channel specific people. I'd be like, what would Janet do in this situation? Like,
Yeah.
I've thought that many times.
Yeah. Because we're so strategic, and I was too, and I've said this to you before, but we can always say, it's just helpful to say it again, then we'll let Jake go. I was so strategic. I wanted it so bad, and that's when I didn't get it, because I'm too strategic. You just kind of got to let go and be excited, be somebody I'm here to help. I'm here to do a great job on set, and I, I can't know how it's all going to work out, but I love this. I love this.
Okay.
And you're not going to please everybody. You're going to find the people you get along with and So
Yeah.
it's
Awesome.
just
Well,
part
thank
of
you
it.
so much.
Okay, Jake, we will let you go, but I
Thank
just
you.
I'm going to continue on a little bit with everybody here. But I just
Awesome.
want, and I got some people that want to say thank you to you, like, so,
My pleasure. Thanks
and
for being here, and thanks for, joining this beautiful community. It's a great world, and it's a lot of fun, and you get to do a lot of amazing things.
thank you so much for being here. And I took some notes. I actually learned from you right now, today. And I want to tell you what I got from you. How you approach everything with director, producer, who I'm always talking to, is you give options and then you discuss the
Mm.
pros and cons. And I typically will kind of not think that way and just kind of, oh, this is why we should do it and here's why. But I love the options. We could do this, it'll cost this much. And it's just a much more encompassing teamwork response, which is you're trained from that
Mm.
with art department, but it's applicable to all departments. And that was actually very valuable to me. So thank you.
Awesome. Oh, I'm glad.
If you are ready to work in the film industry and you want to now take your career to that next level, go to friendsinfilm.com/join. You can learn our implementation system, and then you can even take it all the way by doing our flagship program, the Into the Industry program. It all starts with friendsinfilm.com/join. See you there.